जजलपा सकसिता ठौ नेपाल सम्बत जिन्सा सह पिन्याडा तत्सला ठौ पञ्चमी संसर्भाग अले सन् 2025 मे 31 तारिक विक्रम सम्बत 2082 जेठ 17 गते ठौ पञ्चमी कने खस्टी अले कने सिटिनक सकल सोकुमी भाज मेजु पिन्टा सिटिनक लसता योको भिन्तुना डेचनाचना WDB पाके व वर्ल्ड नेवा अर्गनाइजेसन पाके वर्ल्ड नेवा अर्गनाइजेसन पाके न्यावे चंगुठो न्या निठाय प्रसारण WDB अर्थात ठुकिया पुवंक अर्थ दैको वर्ल्ड नेवा अर्गनाइजेसन डेली ब्रोडकास्ट ठुकु खलाबला ज्याजोले सकल सोकुमी भाज बेन्च पिन्टा जी नरेश शाक्य पाके लस्को यान्चना ठो WDB चिपिसा चाहिँ न्या निठ नेपा इकट गुटाइले WNO याको फेसबुक पेजे लाइभ सोयादी फै अले अठे जुमे लाइभ न सोया जुमे चाहिँ ज्वाइन रिया छि टपिंक छि पाहनाप खलाबला चिप्सन यसन याना दिफै खलाबला न यान दिफै ठो जुम ठो लाइभ सेन्ट्रल युरोपियन इकट निनेसिया 5:15 बजे अले युके इकट निनेसिया 4:15 बजे खसा अमेरिका इस्टर्न टाइम कट सुएसिया 11:15 बजे अले अमेरिका वेस्टर्न इकट चाहिँ ठो सुएसिया 8:15 बजे चाहिँ ठो जुमे चाहिँ लाइभ ज्याचुनी अले WNO को फेसबुक पेज न लाइभ ज्याचुन्जी WNO न थोकु न्या निथा याना चंगु लाइभ प्रसारण चिप्स आर्काइभ रिकर्डिङ न स्वेडिफु त चाहिँ WNO को चाहिँ अफिसियल वेब पेज अफिसियल फेसबुक पेज भिडियो आर्काइभ चल्दा छ चिप्स न रिकर्डिङ स्वेडिफै तर फेसबुक पेज चाहिँ लाइभ जोको भिडियो त चाहिँ सुइन टक्क जग्गा टैगु जुली 30 दिन तक तै जुली 30 दिन लेपा चाहिँ थो अटो डिलिट जु कारण हैन चाहिँ चिप्स सुइन लेपा ठो स्वे फैमुखो एजिया टिमसा चाहिँ ट्विटर डाउनलोड हेना चिसा युट्युब हेना अपलोड याना टैगु दु युट्युब लागि चाहिँ वेबसाइट ठुक्टन्डु youtube.com/WNOWDB हाखनास का चिकमेन नेटना जना youtube.com/WNOWDB ठुकिए जासा चिकबेसा चाहिँ एपिसोड नम्बर अथवा 5 पिन्यु नातया ठिकै चाहिँ सर्च एन्टिल लासा जिसा 8 का गुल्न चाहिँ सुरोन से एपिसोड नम्बर 1 अनि से गुल्टके स यहाँ कटेको फुक्क छ चाहिँ कि अपलोड यान टैगु ठौटके दुने चाहिँ ठौ एपिसोड जिन सोसाव नेगु जुगुदु अरे देगु 1377 भाग थौ जुगुदु ठोय चले चिक्सिपसन शेष्युजी थन विशेष पाक थौ छि नेवा बौद्ध धर्म खय प्राध्यापक मिरन्डा ई साइड थन बनटेगु वस्या न्या चिकपिन्ड छको त ढामको हरेक महिना चाहिँ तक्ले लिपाङ्गो शनिबार चाहिँ नेवा स्कलर ढका चाहिँ नेवा नेपाल भाषा नेवा संस्कृति सुन खेले चाहिँ रिसर्च याना चुना दिपी अथवा दुगेङको ओके चाहिँ ज्यान चुना दिपी ओके एक्सपर्ट चाहिँ हलिनिङको चोपी नेपाली अथवा नेवा गैर नेवा अथवा गैर नेपाली टा हयातना चाहिँ खानावाला याको कोटा इन्सनडु ठय चोले ठौ चाहिँ थो सुङगु बोख तक्ले नापा चाहिँ स्टार्ट न चाहिँ फेब्रुअरी 22 तारिक 2025 अबे चिसा चाहिँ भाषाविद कवि व अनुवादक भाजु डेभिड हरग्रेव्स वेको एउटा हयाखना चाहिँ खलबे नौख वेको एपिसोड नम्बर का 1285 चिकसँग स्वेडी फो युट्युब जाया अनलेपा मार्च से चाहिँ चिसा 50 कि सुना चुना छारा छ अबले वुमेन्स हिस्ट्री मन्जुली चिसँग अबले गेस्ट त म हया अनलेपा चाहिँ निकोको निमम चाहिँ गेस्ट पाख चर्य डान्स होला त्यहाँ होलामी मेजु कोन हन्ट उता चाहिँ वेक आइरेस अप्रिल 26 तारिक शनिबार खुनु भएको ख एपिसोड नम्बर 1343 ठौ चाहिँ एपिसोड नम्बर 1377 ठौ चाहिँ मे या चाहिँ टक्ले लिपाङ्गु शनिबार ठौ चाहिँ हया थन नेवा बौद्ध धर्म खया चाहिँ खनावला याटा एउटा विशेषज्ञ भएको ख प्राध्यापक मिरन्दा ई सजला वस्या न्या चिकमिन छौ सुझाव बेचना चिकपिसा साट वर्ल्ड नेवा अर्गनाइजेसन चाहिँ फेसबुक पेज अथवा ओके ठुकेना थो शेयर जुट गुडुकी नेपाल सम्बत झिन्स सब पिन्याटा गुलाका सप्तमी निसे 9 टक चाहिँ अर्थात् अगस्त 15 निसे 17 टक सन् 2025 दुबई सहर चाहिँ याकोगो हलि नेवा टमुजिया जुइटंगु ख ओके चाहिँ ओ हलिन्जङ नेवाटा खला पुचली सेस्वापु बोलुङसे नेवा सरकार थिथि मुराट ढोनिएको ठो नेवा स हलिङको ठेंगेट सठो छु टमुजिया जुइटंगु अथे अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय स्तर नेवा प्रस्तुति स्वेट ओ दुबई सहर निपुको अवलोकन यार चाहिँ ठुको टमुजिया झाटा सक्लसित अथवा लस्को छ व इनाप जाना छना थुकिया बारे चाहिँ अपो खनिको खसा चिपिसा चाहिँ worldnewa@gmail.com बिने सट एडी फेट अथवा चाहिँ ठिकी थासे चुना जिपि सुनो देशे चोपि नेवा अर्गनाइजेसन अथवा नेवा हलि नेवा डबे कचा लिसे स्वापु तयान ठोक चाहिँ सिकिछ सिकिफै ठोजुल थ चाहिँ जि आ वेगु हलि नेवा डबुया न्याकोगु हलि नेवा टमुजे बारे सिपिन छु जानकारी बियो जुल आचास जि ठाउँ खलाबला बाके होनी ठाउँ खलाबला जि नाचा टार्न ठाउँ जि पहामे जक प्रोफेसर मिरिन्डा एशिया वेक पहचा हाकाको मस्तिका ठुक्टाउँटु वेकला चाहिँ बिए चाहिँ हिस्ट्री अफ आर्ट चाहिँ ओहायो स्टेट युनिभर्सिटी चाहिँ सन् 1978 यान्तिको ख अठे हिस्ट्री अफ रिलिजन्स एमटिएस चाहिँ हार्वर्ड युनिभर्सिटी पाके सन् 2083 पाके पचाकतिको खसा सन् 1985 1985 चाहिँ हार्वर्ड युनिभर्सिटी पाके स्टडी अफ रिलिजन हे चाहिँ एमए यान्तिको ख वेकला चाहिँ सन् 1992 हार्वर्ड युनिभर्सिटी पाके स्टडी अफ रिलिजन चाहिँ डिस्टिङसन हया चाहिँ पिएचडी नै याना दिला वखएको चाहिँ प्रोफेसनल एक्सपिरियन्स खला खस वेकला चाहिँ हार्वर्ड युनिभर्सिटी चाहिँ स्टडी अफ रिलिजन 1984 चाहिँ 1989 तक चाहिँ टिचिङ फेलोज एन्ड इन्स्ट्रक्टर जुया ज्यान दिएको ख अनलिपा चाहिँ वेक 1989 से 1991 तक चाहिँ स्टडी अफ वर्ल्ड हार्वर्ड युनिभर्सिटी साइकोलोजी डिपार्टमेन्ट एन्ड हार्वर्ड सेन्टर फर द स्टडी अफ वर्ल्ड रिलिजन चाहिँ रिसर्च एसिस्टेन्ट जुया ज्यान दिला अनलिपा सन् 1991 1991 से 1998 तक युनिभर्सिटी अफ रिचमन्ड एसिस्टेन्ट प्रोफेसर अफ रिलिजन जुया ज्यान्टीको खस सन् 1998 निसे 2021 तक युनिभर्सिटी अफ रिचमन्ड एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर अफ रिलिजन जुया वेक्ल ज्यान्टीला आठौँ नै वेक चाहिँ रिटायर्ड जुया चाहिँ प्रोफेसर एमिरेट जुया चाहिँ युनिभर्सिटी अफ रिचमन्ड अन आबोट जुया चाहिँ वेक चाहिँ नेपालले चाहिँ योक्वे विदेश विशेष सेना चाहिँ बुद्धिस्ट ड्यान बुद्धिस्ट रिलिजन नप चाहिँ खेले यो कोही रिसर्च जान्दिला गटे कि थियो छु तिथन करना छ न तुकी चाहिँ एनुअल कुमारी फेस्टिभल अनबिया ट्रान्सलेसन अफ संस्कृत टेक्स्ट अन बुद्धिस्ट गडेस म्युजियम आर्काइभल एन्ड फिल्ड रिसर्च अन बुद्धिस्ट गडेस लिभिङ गडेस ट्रेडिसन्स एन्ड साइन्स टेक्स्ट इन टिबेटन एन्ड नेवार ट्यान्ट्रिक डान्स ट्रेडिसन अफ वज्रयाना बुद्धिस्ट प्रिस्ट अफ काठमाडौँ भ्याली वोमेन इन ट्यान्ट्रिक बुद्धिज्म अफ नेपाल खोजला छु वेक चाहिँ रिसर्च नेपाली एन्डीको जुल वेक चाहिँ एक्सपर्ट वेक चाहिँ बुद्धिज्म मे चाहिँ एक्सपर्ट जे खाउँ खला बोला न वे खजी वेक चाहिँ सलन स चाहिँ आर्टिकल्स त वेकला पिकान्टीको दु उल्जेको मुखो वेकला चाहिँ योक्को चाहिँ पेपर्स त प्रेजेन्टेसन्स त सेमिनार्स त यो को वेकला बोटिका ठगु चाहिँ स्पेशल पेपर कीनोट स्पिकर अले इन्भाइटेड स्पिकर ज्या यो को प्रेजेन्ट याना दिगु दु उल्जेको मुखो वेकला चाहिँ डजन समल्याका 6 डजन मुल्याका सफुन चुइदिगु दुसा एडिट न यान दिगु दु ठो चाहिँ वेक ठोफुक नि थन खलाटा छ इ टाका काइ वेक यो बारे खलाटा छ ठिकै बारे खलाटा जी डब्ल्युएनओ संरक्षक धेरै नसके जो चाहिँ वेकन्डा पखानले यान्दी झासा जी ठो चाहिँ आ फो फ्लोर बाजु धेरै सके जुटा ह्यान्ड ओभर यान्छ न जी ठो खबिसे ठो फ्लोर यान्छ ओके प्रोफेसर मिरान्डा जोजोलपा एन्ड नमस्ते
Namaste.
Okay, I just gave you a brief introduction in Nepal Bhasha, okay, to everybody, so that other will know that who you are. Okay, but in detail, I hand over this floor to the Dayat Nashake so that he will chat with you. Especially we set a chat, not an interview, because we believe that chat is more informal comparison to interview. Okay, that's why if you see in our title, it is a WDV means W Kalavala. We say Kalavala. Kalavala means chat, not an interview. Interview is Ninekane. Okay, so I will hand over this floor to Dayarana Sake, so please proceed, Dayajo.
Okay, namaste. Thank you, Naresh. This is very wonderful introduction, what you have just presented regarding Professor Miranda Shah. I'm very honored to have invite her to join with us today. Actually, tomorrow is one of the auspicious day in Nepalese calendar. So I just figured out right now. So that's why I'm very happy to be part of this whole team. So right now we have in a Zoom, 16 people have joined all together, and I don't know how many people have just joined in our Facebook Live. So definitely the message what you are going to give us will be very eye-awakening for all the Newah community, as well as also people who are interested in the study of the Newah Buddhism in, around the world. So definitely I really like to, welcome you in this program. As Naresh has mentioned that WDB is a part of the signature program run by the World Newah Organization, which was established in 2011 in London Convention. So definitely WDB means the World Newah Organization Daily Broadcast. So we have been inviting every day one special guest from all around the world, and especially this program is launched every month, last Saturday of every month. Is like a different kind of a program which we focus on mostly on people who are living outside Nepal, and then focusing on Newah heritage, Newah civilization, and also the Newah, whatever is comes with the Newah tradition. So that's why as a lucky number, this WDB number today is a 1377. So you may remember that number 1377. So that means we have already invited 1,376 people starting from that time. So now it will move on. How long we have no idea, but definitely you are the lucky number getting the 1377. So 1,377th guest person is Professor Miranda. So right now she is with us. Definitely, welcome to this program, Miranda. So I'm very happy. I'm very honored to be, part of this program. And then I would like to welcome you in this program. So, when I requested you, I mean, you have no idea what's going to happen. Can you give me just the, 10, 15 second when I asked you, would you like to part of this program? What was your reaction at the time? The very first reaction from your side. Could you give me just a 15-second reaction? How was it?
Well, my first thought was I'm not an expert, in Newar culture. And
Okay.
then I had to realize that of all the people in the world, probably that are outside Nepal, probably I'm one of the dozen or two, that you would ask. But it's interesting because when I went to Nepal, I'm more than 15 words now, but it's like I wasn't going to study Nepal. I was going to study the dance,
Okay. So,
Chari Nurtya. And then in order to understand the dance, that opened out into the entire culture, you see.
yes.
So,
When you
and
when
then
you hit one, when you hit one thing, and then you will have the reaction of the other things to shows up. That's totally natural, sir.
exactly.
Okay, so I'm very happy that you are with us. So actually, we met each other maybe twice in our life. So maybe in Nitya Mandal we are in Portland, Oregon, and one time it was the 10th anniversary of the Bihara, and just recently last year, I think you were with us at the time. So those are the two, the first time when I met you and I had a book, I had a book already purchased from the store, and then you signed that book for me. It was very honor. I still have it with me. So I went through the book and everything. So it was very, 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 very enthusiastically written, and also very detailed about the goddesses of, goddesses. So that means I'm so much impressed that when I talk about all these things, so definitely, I think Miranda needs to come, invite in our program. So that's what I thought about that. So, but anyway, so I mean, this is completely different kind of subject you have studied before, and also, what was the actually? Is there any coincidence or any special occasion that attracted you to come into this direction or come into this field of study? Because before that, when you were in high school or when you were in college, and you have a different subject, probably what attracts you to come into this field. So, is there any particular significant reason or any kind of incidents that attracted you to come into this field? Could you just give me some hints so that the listener and also the participant will know about how you were attracted in this area, please, just for a couple of minutes.
All right. So when I was in grade school, you're right, there's no subject of Asia of any kind in small
Right.
town America, but in the fairy tale books and the children's books, some of them were set in Asia, and I was absolutely fascinated by the aesthetics, and the illustrations and I just would just kind of go into them in my imagination.
Yes.
And then as I got toward, I'll say junior high, high school level, a friend of the family who was from India, gave me little copies of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita.
Ooh,
That
okay.
time, very little published on Asia. And so when I read those, it was, it just resonated, and I thought, this is true. This is all true. It's that resonance maybe of, karmic, many lifetimes. And so then when I went to college, I did have a chance for more exposure. And I went to college with the intention of taking every course on Asia that my college offered or that my university offered. And so at my first university, I took every course in my first year. Then I had to go to a different university.
Yes.
Yeah, which was Ohio State. And then there I went to this, exhibition of paintings, Tibetan paintings, which,
Okay.
um, well, and the images in the painting, which were Dakinis, Yoginis, although I didn't know at that time that's what they were, but I just became very fascinated with that. And so through this longer journey of, there are several gaps in there from
Right.
that to eventually Nepal, right? So we
Right.
could go through, because first it's India, then Ladakh, so that's Himalayas,
Right.
and then Nepal. So there's some stages
Connection.
in there I want to
Yeah.
discuss.
There's some connection between, India and Nepal and Himalayas, all these things. So great. So,
Well, not that I knew at the time,
okay.
it was very published at the time.
Okay.
So going to Nepal is what helped me realize that what is sometimes taught as Indian culture,
Okay.
right, or South Asian culture is actually of demonstrably Newah, at least origin or significant origin or
Mm-hmm.
transmission. But
Right.
that only later in the story because, well, just the way it's presented in the West. And, of course, South Asia is a great cradle of civilization,
Right.
but so is Nepal,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So,
So while you were saying that, I have noticed that you have used the word karmic circle, right? Karmic cycle. So
mhm.
do you think that, do you believe that because you are involved in the Newar Buddhism, study of Newar Buddhism and also the civilization of Newar people, is there something like what you have done in your past life and because of that result, and now you are involved in this Newar? Do you think, is that possible? Is that something, I just came up in my, thought that,
Interesting. Yeah, so my first thought is I must have done something very good,
yes,
right?
that's what I mean to say.
But when I
Okay.
before I went to Nepal, I was reading my journal last night to remember my feelings
Aha.
or the time I went to Nepal in 1992,
Okay.
and
1992. Okay.
well,
Yeah.
that was not the first time. Okay. But yeah, the time I went in 1992 and met Prajal, met the Vajracharyas and started to
Okay.
explore that. I
Okay.
wrote in my journal, I know something very important and life-changing
Hmm.
going to happen, but I don't know what it is. It's so interesting to read that now, right? That feeling that I had that I just have to go and explore this. Not sure why, because I was on this track. I had just finished, my first book, my dissertation
Yes.
manuscript, submitted it to the press. So that was very much like India, Tibet, right? The Tibetan, the research in India, research in Tibetan texts that preserved India. So when I was in Nepal, I was editing that and I was finding things that I could add to the manuscript that I
Wow.
realized this is in Nepal too.
So that means, you found the original script what you haven't seen in the past, right? Is that
That's right.
something?
That's
Because,
right.
We went to Nepal. You went to Nepal in 1992, and then you met Prajwal and his family and all the, other people, relatives, and the ceremonies and ministries and everything. So that inspired you to go into more detail from 1992 until now. It's almost like more than 30 years. So that means your investment from 1992 until now. Isn't that amazing for you to, be a part of your journey going into this direction? Do you think that it will be continued until you finish, you kind of like, end of your thinking that, okay, this is all what I can do, or maybe you keep continue to do it and more research work in this field? What do you think? Do you have any more other projects in your mind to
Oh,
continue?
very much so. Very much
Okay.
so. So so I do have a book manuscript, which was the subject that I just decided to pursue when I was in Nepal in
Okay.
1990. And there was so much presence of goddesses in Nepal and the yogini, the Vajra yogini shrines,
Right.
which were so powerful. And so I said, I might write a book on goddesses of the Himalayas. That was my thought.
Okay.
I think there should be a book, but um, Mary Schlusser, I mean, Mary
Yes. Yeah.
Schlusser has already written a book. It has a lot of information. Maybe I
Nepal
could,
Mangal.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I could add something. And so then when I ended up, of course, deciding on this project, Buddhist goddesses of India, Tibet, and Nepal, because it's like this big picture. But when I went to Nepal, I mean, I didn't know that it had this amazing goddess tradition, this entire um, female oriented like cosmology and everything. But do you want me to say something about how you said something original I found in Nepal that I didn't
Please go
find before?
ahead. Please go ahead. You
So,
have, you go ahead.
yeah, so this was exciting because in one of the histories, I was looking at the women, the founding mothers, and then some fathers of Vajrayana Buddhism.
Right.
And so one of them, the Dombini, it said in one text, that there were songs by her, songs devoted to her,
Mhm.
gone, right? Not in the record, not in the Tibetan record. So one day I was interviewing Ratnakaji Vajracharya, and
Mhm.
Prajal was translating, and I just asked him, I said, well, do you have any songs? I think it was by this
Okay.
Dombini. And he said, oh, yes, I do. And he went into his manuscript collection. I don't know how long, 20 minutes, half hour. And he came back with this small manuscript, handwritten on, old paper, and opened it and found the exact page. And so he was reading it to me and I was writing it down and then I'm moving toward translating it. And I said, well, what is this manuscript? And he said, well, this is a collection of songs or, that my ancestor wrote down how many years before,
Oh,
500, these lineage or these household collection of songs, texts. And so I said, well, what what information can can you give me for my bibliography? And then Ratnakaji, and I said, well, like the title and the date and the publisher, and then Ratnakaji and Prajal and I just looked at each other and just started laughing because of course there was no bibliography in mind. So I had to, that kind of thing where the tradition is just, that's where you're right on that living pulse, right? That direct lineage is there.
very fascinating. So to be honest, in my family also, we are devoted to the yoginis. So our, sacred, our sacred shrine is dedicated to yoginis, which we believe on the four yogini, Pima yogini, four yoginis. So definitely many of the Newah Buddhist people are, dedicated to the yogini tradition. And then I have no idea how long it has been coming down from the ancient to the right now. So definitely there are 4 yoginis, in Kathmandu, in Nepal Mandala. But from these perspectives, you are so much dedicated to do the work on this field, and also the attraction of what you have seen in this field is like a female tradition in Buddhist tradition. So in one of the CB that I kind of noticed that, there is a word I found a phrase. I found that, female Buddha, female Buddha. There, I found a phrase, female Buddha. So when we say about the Buddhism, and definitely the Buddha is not a female person, but in your work, in your biography, in your CB that you have written or an article regarding the female Buddha. So how do we convince the people that it is not only the Buddha is a male person, but there is a lots and lots of a female Buddha too? So from that perspective, I was kind of wondering, how to convince the people when you get involved with the study of the, Buddhism or Newah Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism, any kind of a Buddhism area, there are some efficient there are some, lots and lots significant figures who have dedicated for the welfare of the human beings, welfare of the human society, and welfare of all the people, living beings in the whole world. There are also some female Buddhas too. So from this point of view, as a Newar Buddhist syncretism, that there is no other comparatively other places like that. So definitely, would you like to little bit highlight on this area that, how you describe that there are some female Buddha too in this Newar Buddhism, Newar study of Newar Buddhism? Just a couple of minutes, please.
So when I did use that term, it was really almost not, as you said, it just was not acknowledged. Like Buddha has this male resonance. And so in my book, Buddhist Goddesses of India, the last third, you might have it there. I don't have it handy to show up. I have this whole section is called Tantric Female Buddhas.
Okay.
So Vajrayogini, and then her different forms, and then, Nairatmya.
Right. Nairatmya, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then a few others. And so within those chapters, and within that book, I distinguish between what we call a bodhisattva
Okay.
and call a Buddha, which is not a judgment or description of their level of attainment.
Right.
It's a description of how they manifest. So are they manifesting a quality such as universal compassion or non-dual wisdom, right?
Okay.
Or are they manifesting full enlightenment, full immersion in emptiness, full realization of wisdom and compassion, emptiness and bliss, or we could say samyak sambodhi.
Samyak sambodhi, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I think that's the difference. We won't say, so if they are manifesting complete enlightenment, that is Buddhahood. So in my next book, well, I kept going on. You said a few minutes. I always go more than a few minutes.
That's okay. So because the more you have a study, and definitely you just cannot stop of where to stop. So that definitely happens. So, but anyway, so there is one curiosity I have, when I look at your CV and also all the, so there's a whole book you have written. I do have that book with me. So it says that the goddesses, Buddhist goddesses of India. So that means all the pictures, all the figures, all the details, what you have given in this book. So I just wanted to show this book right now with me. So in this book, you have mentioned so many goddesses of goddess of Buddhist tradition. But are they also available in India, or just only in Himalayas in India or in Nepal, and also in Tibetan tradition? So these goddesses, for example, Vasundhara and Nairatmya and Gujogini and so many were Tara and Avalokiteswara, everybody. So they are all female, goddesses. But definitely, but did you do this research in India, staying in India, or went to Nepal, or also in Tibet, or in a Tibetan tradition? So how idea came up to compile all the goddesses in this book and then present to the world? Here you go. So these are the female Buddhas. So they are not like, male Buddha, they are female Buddha. They have done so much work for the humanity and everything. So could you enlighten a little bit on this, how you have, came up with this idea or anything?
So you have pinpointed the fact and notice that I really did have to do research in India
Right,
on archives in and then in Tibet and in Nepal, right? I mean,
right,
in Tibetan communities, because Buddhism was present in India for a very long time, and so to go to the archives there
yeah,
and consult scholars there, and then also to have access to Tibetan communities, scholars, archives in India and Nepal.
okay,
So the reason I originally planned a book called Buddhist Goddesses of India, Tibet, and Nepal. And then
okay,
it became too long. So when I separated out the Buddhist goddesses of India, there are goddesses that span all three, such as Vasundhara has this
right,
huge tradition in Nepal.
right,
But she also has history sources in India. So I left
okay,
her Indian history in the Indian book, the volume.
okay. Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
then now for my book, Buddhist Goddesses of Tibet and Nepal, I have a very, one of my longest chapters is on Vasundhara in Nepal.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I heard from this, study of the history that, many manuscripts were kind of like, not available in Nepal, but it was available in India and also in Britain. So because the scholars, they went to Nepal and then they kind of transported all the manuscripts, which is not available in Nepal. And even because of the, the rural people, they don't want to promote any kind of Buddhist activities and anything. And at that time, rather than destroying in Nepal, the manuscripts were taken to outside Nepal and preserved in many universities, in libraries in India and also in the UK and some other places. So because of that, so that now we have to study, we have to do the study outside Nepal to study of Nepal, right? So that's what the tradition is happening at the time. So same way now, I was kind of wondering about why this happened, Buddhist goddess of India. Now you have already mentioned that because your study was all done in Indian, Indian libraries and scholars and everything, the scholars. So that's why you put that. So you have the another book coming up soon regarding the Buddhist goddess of India and Himalayas, something like that, pretty
Well,
soon. Or,
yes, I was just, I have about 1 month on that manuscript to
okay,
finish, and the press is actually waiting for it. And actually, that was one thought when you asked me to do the interview, and I thought, oh, I was devoting this time to finishing that manuscript, right? So there was a little bit of, I want to be very dedicated and focused, but yet I also want to, you could say, give back to, contribute to this understanding or, this culture, people that have, benefited me so much. I can't refuse. I'll put it that way. But that's almost ready to submit to the press.
yeah, thank you so much for your the response to my question. So let me little bit enlighten in Nepal Bhasa so that people who are watching in Facebook, so they might understand what we are doing right now. So जोजोलोपा संस्था जी दया सक्य वर्ल्ड अर्गनाइजेसन WTP प्रोग्राम या ठाउँ चाहिँ झिन्सो सवा झिन्सो सवा ढेन हेगु यो प्रोग्राम थन चाहिँ उडो ठाउँ विशेष पाखा छि चाहिँ प्रोफेसर मिरिन्डा स वेकलङ कुका चाहिँ नेवा बुद्धिज्म बारे गुल्न ठाउँ टका चाहिँ लगभग चाहिँ 30 वर्ष तक यो अध्ययन चाहिँ योगको किताब चाहिँ चुन योगको चाहिँ सफु जगमको आर्टिकल चोया सेमिनार भाग या योगको जाइन चोइदियो वयको यो गुखा चाहिँ जाइत चाहिँ चिसा चाहिँ प्रसारण विषय अथवा वयको जाइत चाहिँ अनर या चाहिँ चिसा वयको चाहिँ थन बनाए चाहिँ याफ्न यान चुनौटो चिकन्यू चाहिँ छु हेस दस चाहिँ वयको लागि चाहिँ हेस लागि चाहिँ तर जुम चाहिँ हेस च्याट चाहिँ चोइदिछ अथवा चाहिँ फेसबुक चोइछ छम मनुना तर जिदा चाहिँ वो क्वेसन जना न्यङ्क बि एजुनिना चाहिँ चिक्नी छुट अस चाहिँ वो यसलाई जी अनरोल यान चुना वेग पाखे गुलिन ज्याजुइ रुकुटु तल यो क्वे ता गजि थौ यो तो 1 घन्टा भित्र अथवा छगो यो दुनिया चाहिँ फुक ज्याला थन चाहिँ छिसा चाहिँ एभालुएसी या फैमको तर एजुन तिना चाहिँ गुली फटो चाहिँ यी लक्का चाहिँ वका एक घन्टा लागि जिसँग चाहिँ इन्भाइट यानाउ का उल्टको भित्र गुली ज्यासिरियो का वो फुका चाहिँ याना चाहिँ तन जिसँग चाहिँ न्याने हायो तेनो जुला Sagistan Juzlopa. Okay, I'm just giving a brief introduction of what we are talking about also because the people who we are also trying to promote the Nepal Bhasa language because Nepal Bhasa language is kind of like going into extension probably in the next few decades. So that's why the situation we are facing like that. So that's why inviting a person like you and then not doing so much work in the Newah Buddhism, so much work on all the in the areas of Newah civilization definitely need to highlight, and then the young generation will more have attraction listening to yours, your talk and your chat and all this thing. So that's why we just kind of I just kind of give a brief introduction about what we are doing right now. So now my next question is about there are so many items that you have come across while you are doing the research in this field. So which is not available in Tibetan side, which is not available in Indian side, which is not available in Hindu side, or maybe in some other side. Was there any particular object that object is attract you so much? For example, I'm going to give you one example that we burn the light. We burn the light like a sukunda. Sukunda is a typical kind of a light style in Newah Buddhism. Sukunda is not available anywhere around the world. So that was the kind of like a Newah syncretism of being using the word Sukunda. Sukunda needs to have one day a Ganesha and also the two lions and also the lightning of the Sukunda is very auspicious for the Tibetan, not only in Hindu tradition but also in the Buddhist tradition. Sukunda is more syncretism for the Newah. Something like that during your study of the Newah Buddhist, was there any particular few items which is very, very attractive for you and also will are more, enlighten you to, see the outdoor items during this session of study of yours? So other than just the study of the books and manuscripts and everything, any item what you have attracted most of the time, sir?
So it was the sculptural style.
Okay.
Statues, the great tradition. So I started to learn about the Newar style of sculpting deities is distinct, right? And it's fabulous. And so it's very graceful, and I would almost call it like it has a living quality. So the statue, then the painting style and discovering, I know that's not one item, but the paintings and the painting tradition and how the Tibetans, I found out that, some of the greatest works, I will say, of art in Tibet were painted by Newar painters brought in from Nepal,
Okay.
right? So like
Yes.
the Newar Monastery. And so you find out that this great artistic tradition, which was not really fully attributed to Nepal when I first set out on my, my art historical training. And then I would say it's actually the living body. It's not the physical article. It's the movement of bodies performing ritual. So I would say like the way the hands, like the way the lamp is held, right? The fingers, it's almost like it's like a mudra, or that the actual bodies moving through these rituals and handling these objects and lighting the candles. I found that to be the actual living stream of the culture and the
Okay.
actual living, the living stream of the beauty, of the vision.
So that means every single, female goddess has a more than two hands, and then they are holding some specific kind of objects. So those objects probably not used by the another goddess, and there is some speciality and significant value of all those objects. Have you seen any kind of significant value of using the objects by particular goddesses? So how do you let the people know that okay, this goddess should have this, that goddess should have that? Those kind of things, significant value of the object they are holding. Is there any message given to the given to the devotees that okay, so this means this means this. Have you come across with any idea regarding this?
Well, that's totally, you know,
Yes.
the whole approach. And the reason that I shifted from art history to the study of religion, because in art history at that time, especially, you would just identify what they're holding, right?
Okay.
Like if it's a yogini, a divine yogini, they say, oh, she's holding the knife,
Okay.
the kartika and the kapala.
Yeah.
That's all. So I'm like, well, why? Right? What does it mean? And so then you can write so much about that. And so I do write about that at great length because it's not just one thing. So yes, absolutely, I'm very interested in the knife, in that flaying knife.
Right.
And so yes, I write, I mean, I can't even encapsulate it or then write about the bowl or like what does it mean that the kapala is emptiness? Or what does it mean, that the knife is, for example, wisdom? Or yeah, that's one of the things I try to write the most about.
Yeah,
But I am,
definitely, we can see the significance, of the, goddesses from the Hindu side and the goddesses from the Buddhist side. So definitely, significant values are there. So when we look at over there, for example, the Basundara, so Basundara has a, one hand always, hold like, the bunch of, paddy, paddy, right? So this
Mhm.
means the paddy holding by the Basundara, it may depict some significant meaning of the why she is holding a bunch of paddy in her, in her hand. It may
Mm,
have some, it may have some significant value. So same way, yogini, they have some kind of a, sometimes, they hold the, mala, and sometimes they hold the kapali, and also all these things are very, very significant. So when you see all these figures, okay, in this, pawa, in this tanka, this goddess is holding this, and then in another pawa, same goddess holding a different one. Have you come across with any kind of a different, figures with the same like a same goddess?
yes.
Yes. Okay. So how do you
'Cause
analyze that? We see the difference from the Tibetan point of view and also from the Buddhist or Newah point of views.
I don't always attribute it to a regional difference, but for example, say Vasundhara. So in India, she mostly had two arms.
Okay.
And then in Tibet, she has two arms.
Okay.
But in Nepal, she has six arms, right? Because she has
Yes.
so much more to do in Nepal because, she holds the paddy, which is the agriculture, the rice cultivation. And so in Tibet, no rice cultivation. So they show her with a little herd of, you know, yaks, right? Or they show her just with the vessel, the
Okay.
boom pot treasure vessel, because
Right.
she's a sort of, you could say wealth, right? So I do, whenever I encounter that, I always delve as deep as I can. But then also in Nepal, there could be an evolution. So I'll say, oh gosh, in fact, I just ran into one of those in another context, but I'll find like Vasundhara or Ushnisha Vijaya, for example.
Which needs to
So
be. Yeah. Mhm.
Ushnisha Vijaya, so in her upper, I shouldn't show my hand because it's not her hand, and it looks funny on Zoom. But in an earlier iteration, I think it was a rosary, and then it was simply the hand, like, held like this, right? Like not holding anything. And so then I go through historically and try to find out when that happened and what interpretation, which they said, oh, then that's the Nandana,
Okay.
uh,
Dandana. Yeah. Okay.
something Rudra of giving honor to something, right?
Right. Yeah.
But then you find that someone will put something in that hand. And sometimes I think it's a mistake that becomes codified. Because when you look
Okay.
at the paintings, it's like you
Yeah.
can't quite tell what that is. And then so someone else said, oh, that must be this, but it's not that, but it becomes that over time. So there were a few things like that um, that I do encounter, and I do absolutely track it down as much as possible.
Yeah, very, very, because the goddess should be in the same figure almost everywhere. But as you mentioned, the geographically differences, the availability of having a paddy in hand in the Basundara in Nepal. So a different one in Tibet, but the same figure, same goddesses. So definitely because of geographical distinction is more more needs to be significantly shown in the figure. So it was very, very, impressive your vision of looking at the figure. Every single figure has a different kind of a vision. So I didn't know about that all these things, because when I look at the, some of the chapters from your book, and then I kind of realize that, okay, how it is different from one to another one, even though it is the same goddesses. So to be honest, to ask you one more like another question, that now until now so much work have been done. So what is your next journey? What is your next next your aim to be fulfill your goals? So what are you going to do for I don't know, I don't want to say the time difference, but do you have any other things you want to do? Until now what you have done is so much work, and then is there anything that you haven't done yet but you would like to complete again? Is there any field that you want to go it again?
Well, Doya, I have I have a whole file drawer of possible projects,
Okay.
but the main one right now is this, Buddhist goddesses of Tibet and Nepal, which is just, like I said, just putting in some final touches of things that have happened. Like when I
Okay.
first started it, it was when, Nepal was the monarchy.
Okay.
So the story of the Kumari kind of changed a little bit. I have to adjust that.
Okay.
So then I had not started initially. I just wanted to learn about Charya dance and learn, Charya dance. And then it evolved into a, some articles, which you saw in my CV, but also a book manuscript
Yeah.
of, I have written significant portions, and it keeps getting longer. And now I have to bring it back in and finish that. And
Okay.
that has, and then I have another idea for a book that I want to call, I have a lot of, kind of notes and an outline called The Female Core of
Okay.
Buddhism,
Okay.
which links together what I would call the South Asian, which is, insofar as Nepal is like South Asia or South Asia and Himalayas, right? But I
More
mean,
extended. Yeah.
links together this
Uh-huh.
female core and integrates what I've learned from Nepal, the Nepal
Okay.
materials, right? Like
Yeah.
Vasundara in Nepal, you cannot write about the female core of Buddhism and leave out Vajrayogini in Nepal, Vasundara in Nepal, So
Yeah.
that's one. And
There are
then I
many,
have,
many, many, many deities are there which we cannot leave out if we study the Newah Buddhism, something like
yeah,
that. So
that's right.
this is
That's right.
very important. Yeah, thank you for
Welcome to
giving your insight on what you are going to do for the next project. And as you said, you have a piles of, cabinet is all full
my.
of project that needs to be completed before,
Mhm.
anything is getting delayed. So
Mhm.
just a quick thought, while you are teaching the Buddhist this subject in the universities, or so following your path, have you seen any other new generation people they continue to follow your path and do more research in Nepal regarding this subject, or not yet, or going to be? Any kind of insight on this?
There are people, places,
Is there anyone who wants to follow your path and then
well,
do more research in the field what you have just did for last 30 years?
there are, but it's not specifically Nepal. It's
Okay.
more, oh, a female scholar or working on gender, working on goddesses.
Okay.
So I think that what interests people in Nepal in studying the Buddhism of Nepal is really the role of cultural ambassadors, such
Okay.
as Vajracharya,
Yeah.
such as Nitya, Nityamandala Mahavihara,
Yes.
and then the influence of the art. So in our historical circles, really promoting what is Newah versus simply, Buddhist, or sometimes the Newah has been, kind of categorized under somehow Tibetan. And then, for example, Tsering Sherpa, I think is his name, who has this contemporary, a contemporary painter
Yes.
that draws attention to specifically Nepal. So I believe that it's the culture, because people are drawn to beauty, and they're drawn to, kind of inspiration, right? Things that
Yeah.
illuminate, uplift. And so words alone do not do that. And so I'm very concerned about the fact that we, and you and I are really talked about this, struggled with this, and the whole idea of Nepalese, Newar, Newah,
Okay.
and the problem, and I'm really coming up upon this because I'm writing about it, and I always I have to use Nepal, right? Because people need something behind a word to be interested.
Yeah, we'll
So,
talk about that. So if you communicate, personally, I have some insight on what would be the best one to choose
oh,
if in
good.
your writing, and then we'll talk about that. So I see a hand is raised by Lochan Mananda. She is from the UK.
All
So
right.
Lochan, please open your camera and then ask the question to Professor Miranda sir. What you have? Go ahead, please.
Yes, Joselupa, thank you. Thank you, Dayaji, and thank you, Miranda Shaw. Very interesting talk, but I just wanted to ask the basic question, which you said that you are a teacher in religion, mainly in Buddhism. Do you ever meet student who ask the questions like, God is created by us, or what? Is there have there been any question like that? If so, and how do you answer to that? And the second question is, you also said that you did the mainly research in India, mainly. Have you ever been back to Nepal? Uh, now you said that you're going to do some more research and you're writing the book. Are you planning to go back to Nepal uh, and then write about the Buddhism? I just wanted to know how how much the religion has changed in the world. Are they the percentage of believer and non-believers? Do you ever face this sort of thing? And if so, how do you answer that, please? Thank you. I'm sorry about all this nonsense question, but I'm sure you will clarify me about all this.
Go
So,
ahead,
of
please.
course,
Thank you.
teaching religion and exposing students to different deities, and especially students at that impressionable age
Uh-huh.
of 17, 18, 19, where some of them have not been exposed before.
Mhm.
So I do have an approach that helps them understand that they can believe. You can believe in God. In fact, if you believe in a God, supreme source, then you might imagine that different people in different times and places would understand and envision that supreme being differently.
Mhm.
And so the difference among religions is whether the religion thinks that their view is the only one, right one, or if the religions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, and some others think that it's natural that not all people would have the same view. So I do ease them through that awareness. And the
Okay.
second,
So yeah, thank you for answering our question. So I also see another question in Facebook.
Okay.
Kiran Shrestha has put a question, so probably it may take a longer time to answer, but somehow the question is, please explain about Kumari, living goddess in living goddess from your research and study. So it might take a long time to just a quick answer. Please explain about Kumari, living goddess from your research and study. Just a quick answer to Kiran Shrestha. He has put the question in a Facebook. Go ahead, please, just for a couple of minutes.
Simplest answer, I think. And this is why a Kumari, why a young girl, which has been mistranslated as virgin, but that has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
You can't expect that a 4-year-old girl or an 8-year-old girl or a 12-year-old girl, right? So really what it is a prepubescent girl, and the
Okay.
belief that her karmic, she has not yet acquired a karmic load in this life, so that the Shakti can flow through her in a kind of a pure and true manner. And this belief that a Kumari is capable of like kind of prophecy or like seeing, she has the divine eye on her forehead. And I've just been reading some texts actually about her, some primary texts that say that so she can see beyond, she sees not with her own eyes or not with the eyes of others, right? So she sees with kind of the inner eye, the truth of things. And this is just a widespread belief throughout South Asia, and I'll say the Himalayas, that I will focus in my book. So in that belief in young girls having this, a kind of purity, right? But we want to say it in a karmic way, and that their Shakti, if I can use, is available for the nation,
Okay.
for the community, or for individual worshipers. Whereas when she becomes of age and eventually she goes into a career or a household situation, then her Shakti is channeled into that. You see.
Yes. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So
So I have just a final 2 questions. So I mean, regarding this program, WDB, so how do you inspire the young generation so that they can continue to study, follow what you have done in the past? So do you have any suggestion for the young generation of Newah people so that we should not forget this field? We should not, rather than just focusing on science, technology, IT, computer science, all these things. So this is also part of our life. This is also a subject matter that we cannot forget about it. So how do you encourage the new generation so that they can also continue as you have done in the past? So do you have any words for them, for the new generation?
well, I feel that an exciting new answer is actually present in the way you stated the question, because it is true that for a time, the interest in the Newar culture was almost replaced
Okay.
by the need, of course, to make a livelihood, and then kind of the Western, you could say, influence ideals. But why is Nepal at the forefront of certain kinds of technologies? When I'm in Nepal, I mean, there's so much technical knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And so if the younger generation can see that they can use the new technologies to present Buddhism, the rich
Nice.
resources of Newar Buddhism in new ways, that to understand that they have something to offer from their culture that is unique. You see, that is the beauty, the glory, the aesthetic splendor, which the world needs right now, right? The beautiful ideals, and they can present them in new ways with new technologies.
Okay.
That would be the most exciting. That would bring Newar Buddhists, in young Newar Buddhists, into the kind of realm of expressing and relating to their Newar culture, and then also engage the world more in Newar culture.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for the insight for the new generation. So my final question to you, we have this program, as we have mentioned, that this program is almost like a 1,377th one, which is, Miranda Shaw's programs. For the recording, I'm saying your name. So what do you think about this program that, I invited you particularly for today, is the last Saturday of month of May, and then you are with us. And then what do you think about this program? So do you have any kind of a comment or suggestion or any insight or encouragement? Whatever you have from your vision, that do you think this program should be, continue in a different way, or any suggestion you have for the team of this, the WDB program from the World Newah Organization? And then after that, so the host, Dr. Naresh Shakya, I will hand over to Naresh Shakya for the conclusive remark. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I say social media, and then the whole issue of Nepal, Newah, Nepal, what word we're going to use, because no one is searching. Newah is not a search term for anyone unless they know what it is. So I think the idea of how it's framed, because when you go to Nepal, there's so many books about Nepal, right? The publishing and the is so vital. But so when people go to Nepal, they become so interested in Nepal, right? And so that's where all this publishing and fantastic bookstores and publishing. So it's because they're in Nepal and they see what it is. But no one's looking for Newah.
Okay. From the literature point of view.
But even like say a Google search or
Okay.
or research, right? But when they learn about Nepal, they become interested. So
Right.
there's an issue there that I'm facing and you're facing and everyone that speaks and teaches about Nepal is facing.
Yeah, I see your point. So, but we are trying to bring some changes so that we can we can use the war as overall in a universal way. So before, because of the historical, because of the political scenarios, we were kind of misled by different war. But now the World Newah Organization is trying to put together like what we see right now and what we say. It has to be pronounced the same way. Anyway, so we'll talk about that in the next episode if you have a time. Okay, so because our time is almost over there, so definitely we need to make a closing remarks. So I would like to hand over to Dr. Naresh Shakya, the host of this program, and then thank you, Miranda. So it is very honored to have you to come over this program, and then please, Naresh, continue for the closing remark. Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dayaratan Sakiju, for like bringing such a valuable resource person in our WDB program. So, Professor Miranda Shaw, so you are so great. We listen to so much things, and I know that there are so many things to talk. Okay, so anyway, so because of the limited time, so we cannot talk. But I just want to ask one or two questions, okay, if you permit. Okay, so one question is simply like, how difficult to conduct a field research, because I know that you visited a couple of times in Nepal. Yeah, you did a lot of and you talk with a lot of people, because I know that most of people are very hesitant to talk about this stuff. Okay, and first of all, and other stuff is language problem. Okay, so how did you conduct all these research? So just explain tell us in brief that how difficult.
Right. So I'm studying, the Vajracharyas. I mean, that kind of esoteric knowledge, which is what was my first interest in the tradition. And so there was one scholar of that generation, well, actually two, but the one that I met. So Ratnakaji Vajracharya was very devoted to teaching scholars about his tradition, and he was willing to do that. And he did receive some, criticism for doing that. So I had I cannot say how many hours of interviews with Ratnakaji over a space of, I'd have to add it up, but I think it was like 10 years, right? So I integrate what he taught me and then go back with new questions. And he did not volunteer information. He would answer what I asked. So as I got deeper into the tradition, he would give me deeper answers. But how did I communicate with him was through his son, Prajal, Prajal was my guide to that world and translator in many interviews, and then also Sanskrit was the language that I had in common with Ratnakaji in terms of technical issues. So we had that shared vocabulary. So over time, fortunately, Prajal can communicate in Newari, no, and Nepali. And so because the questions that a Westerner brings are different than kind of your way of organizing knowledge in a way is different. So Prajal became very adept at translating my questions in a way that might elicit the answer, right? Over time, he became, because you're really trying to communicate between two worlds that have different vocabularies, different categories. But I was fortunate to have Prajal, who actually had entree to many aspects of the tradition, such as visiting the artists. And he was very in touch with that community. And then, of course, the scholarship of his father, and then, museums. And it was just this full immersion. It's everywhere when you're there. Eventually you see. And of course, the
Wow.
amazing temples and shrines, and then the books, it's, yeah, is that.
Okay, yeah, I got the answer. So you are very thankful to Ratnakaji and Prajal Bajrachari, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, so my final question is, now I know that you have published into 2 books, right? Which is in the prepared, already published. So this, for example, Dancing Enlightenment, Tantric Buddhism, Buddhist Dance of Nepal, and Buddhist Goddess of Tibet and Nepal. So these 2 books are on the way, right? So my simple questions are, what do we expect to read on these books?
Well, so I think Buddhist Goddesses of Tibet and Nepal, well, you'll have a very long, detailed chapters. The Nepal section starts with Guyeshwari,
Mm-hmm.
the Yogini Mandala,
Mm-hmm.
Haritima,
Mm-hmm.
Vasundhara, and the Pancharaksha. And so not only the kind of historical like works of art, which in the book on India, perforce, I was dealing with historical sources that are not current. In Nepal, it's a living tradition. So I also can include like the processions and the kind of the ritual life, the living tradition.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that will be illuminating. And then of course the book on Charinurtia, long in coming, that goes very deeply into that tradition. And the deities, of course, the deities that are danced. So that's another dive, it's another delving into the meaning of the deities, their different gestures, mudras, implements, their appearance and iconography, as well as their ways of moving in the world, right? Their ways of ministering.
Thank you so much, Professor Miranda, because I know that when I saw your CV, it is a 13 pages CV. There are so many things to tell to our audience, so it is not possible. We have very limited time, so hopefully we can do someday. Thank you so much, Professor Miranda, and also Naresh Shakya, so who brought a very valuable resource person in our WTV program. So Sokemi Baza Mezepi, Tove Chinapadi, Professor Miranda Shaw, वेका चाहिँ ठाउँ चाहिँ स्कलर चाहिँ हरेक महिने चाहिँ तकले पाङ्गो चाहिँ शनिबार चाहिँ निवा स्कलर ढका हेगो कुटाइन चुनोडो ठ्वे झोले चाहिँ ठाउँ चाहिँ जिन्सोसो ने गुगु एपिसोड वेका नाप चाहिँ नेवा पौडो धर्म सम्बन्धी चाहिँ खानाले नको जला अले ठिक खानाले यान दिमा का भाजो डेरटन साके जोखा वेका डेको सुबेडो ठ्वे ढासे आ हानसका जिन हाजना चिकपिन कनेतन जिटो नेपाल सम्बत जिन्ससा पि न्याटा गोलाका सप्तमी निसे नमिटका अर्थात् चाहिँ सन् 2025 अगस्त 15 निश्चय 17 चाहिँ दुबई सहर चाहिँ यहाँको हलिनिवा टमुजा जुइचंगुटु सकलसित अन झाइटिट सोलाइटिट बोटिकाइटिट इनाप पियानाचना थुक्यो लागि छु ठिकपिन्ट चाहिँ ख निनेगु डसट worldnewa@gmail.com वो इमेल सुया चाहिँ छिपिसन यस तया दिफु अले छु इन्फर्मेसन मासन छिपिसन चाहिँ WNOA फेसबुक पेज न योको खण्ड चाहिँ पोस्ट सुइट गुडु सुसोट अथवा चाहिँ चिपिनी चाहिँ थासे देशे चाहिँ ठयो नेवा हली नेवा डबुया कचा डस वेक पिलिसे स्वापुटे हैन तो न्याको हली नेवा डबुया ख चाहिँ चिपिसा चाहिँ ख सिगरी फो ट्रेड आसे ठयडो जिन सोसव नेगुंगु बो चाहिँ थने कोचा केटा चिपि पाखे इना पिन सक्लो सोकोमी भाजम बेपि जुमे ओ फेसबुक लाइभ स्ट्रिम पिन अले लिपा स्वेडी पिन एकको स्वे बिसे ठय ठो थने ज्याजो कोजा हाखनस को सुबे जोजो लपा
Like